Friday. Let's do this. Thanks so much for having me, May, and everyone at Eric. Yeah, as May said, I'm Abby. I'm head of copywriting at Bloom and Wild, which is an online flower gifting company. But I've also worked at lots of different brands and agencies, always as a writer or a copywriter. And today I'm going to be talking about will a robot take my creative job, which is something that I've been worrying about, and I'm sure that a lot of you are thinking about the same thing as well with the rise of AI. So yeah, here's a bit about me. I'm Abby. I write words for brands. So anything that you see that's got copy or words on, that can be things like billboards or TV adverts, social media, emails that you get from brands, packaging, print, all the little words on packaging, and also things like website copy. But I just want to take it back a bit and talk about me as a kid growing up. So I'll start at the beginning, like all good stories. This is me in my school uniform. I grew up in a town called Lincoln, which is in like the Northeast Midlands, and I was actually born with a facial disfigurement called Cruson syndrome. And this meant that the bones in my face didn't develop in quite the same way that other people's did. And also meant that I looked a lot different from the kids around me in school. I never really met anyone who looked like me. So this often made me feel like maybe I didn't belong or I was like kind of left out. But the good thing is that it made me really interested in stories and make believe and daydreaming. Because I felt so different, I was always imagining what it might be like to be like other people. So as a kid, I loved dressing up, usually with a hat on my head or some stupid outfit. I loved making up stories, writing out and acting little plays, and like generally just kind of goofing around. And I really loved the escape that these stories gave me because they allowed me to walk in someone else's shoes for a while. And this love of writing kind of stayed with me throughout school. I worked really hard at school, and I eventually ended up going to University of Bristol to study English literature. So while I had a lot of surgeries to change my face, my love of story writing remained. And I graduated in 2011. Here's me with my lovely mum on my graduation day. However, graduating for a degree in English literature doesn't necessarily mean you know what you want to do after you finished university. And I didn't really have a clue apart from maybe careers like teaching, which I wasn't too sure about, or maybe publishing, but it just seemed really kind of out of my scope. However, one thing, there was a TV show blowing up at the time called Mad Men, and this is set in the 60s on New York's Madison Avenue. And it was about some of the very first advertising agencies and all the like cool creatives that worked there. It was really slick, like the characters were really complicated, and it was like faithful to the period and the changing cultural landscape in America at that time. And it was the first time, crucially, that I'd been introduced to the concept of a copywriter. This is one of my favorite TV characters of all time. She's called Peggy Olson. I also kind of look like her, which I'm sure made me inspired to be interested in what she was doing. And so this is really interesting for me, like a copywriter, someone who like writes strap lines to sell a product, basically, but most often left you kind of feeling something that you hadn't even thought of before. We often think about stories being something that's already happened, but for a copywriter, you're often telling a story about what's happening to people and to culture and society, like right now. Like, what are people's dreams, hopes, fears, and desires, and how can you reflect it back to them? So, before we go any further, hang on. Isn't this talk supposed to be about AI? Well, yes, it is. But the reason I'm telling you this story is because in a world of AI generated slop, your story, where you come from, is your superpower. So, what's your experience been? What lights you up? What gets you angry? What's your point of view? All of these are inherently human qualities that are going to make you special and that are going to make you stand out. And this is something that AI can never replace, only imitate. There's a lot of AI anxiety around right now in the creative industry. It's something that I felt very deeply, like, is this new shiny thing going to replace me? And yeah, I can only imagine as a young person thinking about going into a creative career that it feels really super scary right now. But here's a spoiler. We've actually been here before. Throughout human history, every time a new technology has been invented, people have been scared and anxious. So I'm going to show you a few quotes now throughout history, and I wonder if you can guess what people are talking about. So here's number one. I think there's a world market for maybe five of these. I wonder if you know what this person's talking about. This was Thomas Watson, chairman of IBM, the huge technology conglomerate, talking about the invention of computers in 1943. How wrong he was. Here's another one. From today, thinking is dead. The machine has superseded the mind. I wonder what this person is talking about. It was painter Paul Delaroche on the invention of the camera in 1839. Again, how wrong he was. And this goes back even further. For this invention will produce forgetfulness in the minds of those who learn to use it, because they will not practice their memory. I wonder what this is about. This was actually the philosopher Socrates on the invention of writing in the 4th century BC. So as we can see, all of these statements demonstrate a fixed mindset. Something new and unfamiliar comes along, and like we get scared. It's really human and it's really normal. But as you probably know, having a growth mindset means that when you see a challenge, instead of running away, you actually need to start asking questions like, why am I scared of this? What particular thing is making me anxious? And the best way to face your fears is to get curious. This is exactly how I turned my fear of AI around by just deciding that I was going to learn absolutely everything I could about AI. So let's get curious. What do we actually mean when we say AI? Artificial intelligence. Actually, a lot of things that you use every day use artificial intelligence. Things like spell check or predictive text on your phone, or when you're asking Alexa to play you a song, or if you've got like a Fitbit measuring your steps. These are all types of artificial intelligence. But in this context, what we're talking about is something called generative AI. So tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Midjourney, you might have heard of these. You might use some of these already. And these are models that have been trained on huge amounts of text and code from across the internet, books, and human output. And then essentially what they do, they learn all this information and mash it all together to talk back at us. So I wanted to dispel some myths. Because AI tools talk and sound and act like they're human, like it's really easy to think that maybe, yeah, they're alive. There's this creative, sentient robot working behind the scenes making magic. But the actual way they work is like a big, giant jigsaw puzzle. So if you imagine the internet is like a huge million, trillion piece jigsaw puzzle made of words, all AI tools are doing is like searching through and finding the right words to fit together. They don't actually know what the words mean. They can't interpret them, but they're just predicting what might be the perfect next piece and what might just fit together. So in this way, we can think about generative AI more like a mirror. It's reflecting human language back at us, but not actually understanding what any of it means. AI tools don't think or feel, they mimic. And most importantly, they can't create anything original. So creativity, good creative, isn't just about using words that sound good or pretty or shiny. It's actually about having good ideas. And all of the best ideas in advertising come from emotional truth. And emotional truth is something that we resonate with as humans on a really deep level. It gets us to sit up and pay attention and feel something like really uniquely human or have a shared experience that we recognize in ourselves and other people around us. So here are a few of my favorite advertising campaigns that use an emotional truth that make you feel something. This is an absolute classic. It's from This Girl Can by Sport England. It's a bit of an old one now, but I think it's so relevant that it never really gets old. And it's aimed at encouraging more women and girls to get into sport by literally kicking stereotypes head on. So, the emotional truth behind this campaign was that what stops most women and girls from taking part in sport isn't the physical effort, it's actually the fear of judgment or shame, like being judged for not being fit enough or slim enough or like too sweaty. And so this campaign was aimed at like breaking down that shame by using really empowering, positive statements that might not be the usual things you think of. Um, this is really important because AI doesn't feel shame or judgment, so it never would have been able to come up with this idea. Another really great brand at using emotional truths is Dove, and they are great at championing real beauty for women. They were one of the first brands to feature real women of all shapes, sizes, ages, ethnicities in their advertising rather than just using like pretty perfect models. This campaign was from a couple of years ago. It was called Turn Your Back. And it was a reaction to the huge rise in selfie filters on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. And in particular, one filter called Bold Glamour. So the emotional truth behind this was that the perfect face of AI-driven beauty filters is quite intimidating, but more than that, it's toxic and it's dangerous because it actively harms self-esteem of young women and girls, thinking that they have to look a certain way. So this campaign, Turn Your Back, literally encouraged women, celebrities, influencers to reflect new toxic beauty trends by literally turning their faces away from the screen. And it was a really powerful message that says, I'm not going to participate in this. I'm not going to let this filter define who I am. Again, I don't think an AI could have come up with this because they don't know what it's like to not feel like they belong. This is one of my favorite adverts that's kind of out there right now in the world. It's called Who's a Good Human by the dog food brand Butternut Box. And I love this line. It's so genius because it flips around what we often say to our dogs and cats, like who's a good boy then, or who's a good girl then, and puts it back onto pet parents who so often we're really anxious about whether we're doing a good enough job for our furry friends, like are they happy? Also, it's just really funny and it makes you laugh. And that is another thing that AI is absolutely terrible at, is being funny. So this is where you come in, because you see, AI has never been born. It's never felt nervous on its first day at school. It's never cried with laughter with its best friend over some stupid joke that only you two get. It's never felt what it's like to be different, to want to belong. It's never tasted a delicious meal that your parents have cooked you, or felt the safety of a hug after a bad dream. AI can't tell what's good, what's bad. It doesn't know what's cool, what's funny, or who has ultimate riz, or why something becomes a meme. These are uniquely human experiences that only you, as young, curious, creative, and complex emotional human beings, will ever understand. And so the key to using AI is to think of it as a tool rather than a brain. So here are some ways that I use AI as a creative tool. So one thing I use it for is research, researching like who I'm trying to talk to and what might be going through their mind. Here's an example prompt. I'm writing an advert for a 16-year-old sneaker fan. Create a mood board with their top three songs, three brands they love, number one influencer, and one trend they find cringe. And that just gives me a really great starting point to think about an idea that could talk to that person. Number two, I use it for brainstorming. So here could be a prompt like, help me brainstorm 10 ideas for a social media post using a TikTok trending sound. It's not coming up with the idea, but it's just giving me a little bit of a head start, so that I've got something that I can spar with and get me off a blank page and into my creative process. Another great thing I use it for is critique. So AI is really good at telling you that every idea you've ever had is an amazing idea, which is not always true. So I often use it like a creative director. I would say something like, act as a creative director, critique this piece of writing, including what's bad, what's good, and what's one glow up suggestion. So I'm actually using it to help me become a better writer. And another great thing it's good for is helping you learn. So if copywriting is something that you really want to go into, you could use AI to help you design a 10-day writing challenge to help you learn basic copywriting skills. So will AI take my creative job? No, but someone using AI better than you could. I love this quote from Lava LaRue, who is a singer-songwriter, like an incredible creative, and she has some great, amazing ideas about creativity and AI. She says that, like, what if we didn't fear AI, but we saw it as a challenge to push us to become a little bit more original, a bit more inventive, a bit more creative than an AI could ever be? And what if competing with robots is actually forcing us into a creative evolution? So, whew, I feel like we've covered a lot in only 20 minutes. But if there are only three things that you remember from today, I would love for you to take away these things. Number one, your story is your superpower, and AI is never going to be able to replace that. And your point of view is going to be absolute gold dust to different companies that are looking for talent like yours to make them stand out. So don't dull it down, don't dim your shine, don't use AI to replace what's really special and unique about you. Number two, AI can't create, it can only copy. So if you're ever using AI, just be really aware of the limitations. Like be aware that it's just mimicking, it's just mirroring things back to you. And always check what it says to you is correct. It might not be telling you the truth. Number three, use AI as a tool, not a brain. Don't use it to replace your creativity, but think about ways that it can actually enhance your creativity and make you even more creative than you already are. So that is my 20-minute whistle stop tour into why AI is not going to take your creative job. Thank you so much. If you would like to get in touch with me, please do. I am always available for questions. My email address is abby@bloomandwild.com. And you're also welcome to come follow me on LinkedIn, where I post a lot about AI and creativity, and I share a lot of useful articles, things that I come across, and also tips and tricks on how to use AI in your day-to-day role. And yeah, my LinkedIn is linkedin.com/Abby Worth.